very big news. The SAG, the new deal, got approved by the National Board. This vote is up in a few weeks. There's an 18-page summary. It's a lot. Everything that members care about is affected in this deal. I was on the brink of scorched earth last week, so we'll see where I fall at the end of this. All right. Welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World podcast, where we talk about the highs and lows of the acting in Hollywood and finding joy along the ride. Oh, the world's a stage, and this one's on fire. I'm Econ Song, and this is...
Rian Chi, Kelly.
I know. I wanted to see your live reaction to that. If you're not following us, we're on all platforms at Actors Guide Podcast. And if you want to support, we just started a Patreon.
We did.
Very exciting.
We got some supporters. Can we shout out the first person to sign up was a young Paddy Moynan. Patrick Moynan, thank you very much for being our first supporter on Patreon.
Exactly. Special shout out. Patreon is up and running. Thank you so much for the support. And just so you know, the podcast is not going to change. It's just a way to support, keep us doing the podcast, and also, make it better.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Is craft services the only time you eat a decent meal?
Do you feel a little ashamed walking off set with fistfuls of brisket?
Meet Crafty Bag, the stylish and environmentally conscious way to steal food from set.
There are no limits with Crafty Bag. You can go from fig Newtons to filet mignon.
Now comes in green screen. Crafty Bag is not waterproof. Spillage may occur.
So, very big news. We were teasing this a little bit. We were talking about the SAG tentative deal. As we were posting, the new deal got approved by the National Board. The summary has gotten released. There are information meetings. I made one of them this week. We figured we were just going to dive into it because I don't know if anyone else is, and also it's a lot of information. And maybe we can kind of sort through the main topics, the big issues, and do the heavy digging so you don't have to. So this vote is up in a few weeks. Like I said, there are information meetings. Some are online. I think they're all online, to be honest. So you have to RSVP to sign up and make sure you RSVP because you're not allowed in on the Zoom if you don't RSVP ahead of time. So there's an 18-page summary. It's a lot. We're going to distill it down to the main point. And at the end, we will see if I go scorched earth. I'm still mulling it in my mind. We were talking about it.
You're always threatening to scorch the earth.
Yeah, exactly. I was on the brink of scorched earth last week, and I don't want to reveal it, but I'm still on the brink. So we'll see where I fall at the end of this.
There you stand, verbal blowtorch in hand, just ready to scorch that earth.
Exactly.
Flamethrower.
Exactly. I should make that into a sticker. That's a great picture. First off, let's talk AI. I know, all of our favorite topics. A big sticking point for a lot of people was the fact that we're negotiating digital replicas. This was in 2023. We're negotiating digital replicas. There is a definition created called synthetic performers. And if you don't know what that means, it's essentially Tilly Norwood, but just a computer AI generated quote unquote performer. I just want to clear up. They actually removed the word performer, stricken from the record now.
Solid.
Because after 3 years, they're like, hey, this is kind of an insult to real performers. So
did you see what Seth Rogen said this week about, when like he sees a post that says about an AI, clip or whatever, he's like, the industry is cooked. And then he's like, and then it's just the worst dog shit you've ever seen. Which is kind of how I feel, where they're like, well, it's over, guys. And then there's some terrible AI clip that's about a minute long. And you're like, yeah, but it's still crap.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are blowing it up, the fact that this contract should have amended and said no AI allowed anywhere at all in any circumstance. Quick definition, if you don't know, digital replica is in connection with the employment of a motion picture, movie, TV, streaming show. You will create a digital replica in conjunction with employment on a project, nothing outside of that. The other argument, if you're older, for whatever reason can't work as much, this employment-based digital replica could work for you. The definition of digital replicas, that was put into the contract as a guardrail to protect around the corner that no one saw.
It's a bit vague, the language. Like in one of the provisions, they clarify scripted with regards to digital alterations, and the language is to me a bit vague. It says, under the current contract, producers can use digital replicas to perform digital alterations without obtaining additional consent, as long as they don't go beyond how the original work was scripted, performed, and recorded. So this tentative agreement clarifies that scripted refers only to a script that was provided to the performer before. So I think they removed this opportunity to manipulate performances. Am I getting that?
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought that up. I want to dig into that because I actually care about that a lot. The irony is there's a lot to bark about. I actually like the direction that this AI stuff is going. That is exactly one of the points that I had a problem with. The employer is employing you and your digital replica. If it needs your digital replica for any of these concerns, you will get paid like you were actually performing it. The digital replica was a way to supplement an actor's income. You were hired by a TV show. You are still a hired performer. You can't, they wouldn't have created a digital replica of you, okay? A digital replica is of a specific person and it's tied to an income. This is a structure that was put in 2023 and it's quote unquote being built upon. You just touched on something that I actually really like because before, so listen to this language that was in 2023. We understand that you have the right to informed consent. You must be provided a quote-unquote reasonably specific description of the intended use. Super vague. You thought this language was vague. This is even more vague. For informed consent to be valid, a reasonably detailed description of the intended use must be provided. So forget about the script. This is so loose and vague. People were wondering, are you going to be putting me in violent situations, sexual situations? Is there going to be nudity? There's so much room for interpretation in this, and that's why I really didn't like the language in 2023. I think this is a step up. So I think my issue is it wasn't clear how they would change it back in the day. Now, if you ad-lib a different line, if the scene is still roughly the same, you're walking into a door, or you're walking into an office, you say this interaction with this other character. The question is what is considered a significant change or a clear clear description in the entire process of the editing of a TV show, the rewriting of a TV show, and all that stuff. We know that a line delivery, and see in the eyes, your vocal inflection, whatever, what have you, that's such a nuanced, minuscule change. They possibly could have been able to adapt any of that. And so my point is if you go into a scene, and I know that, I always use Jason Bateman because obviously he's a genius and he's a great writer and actor. There's a lot of ad libs or direction that he says, I'm not going to say that because he doesn't want any edit. And he will, because he's Jason Bateman and more power to him. He will say, yeah, I'm not going to say that line like that because I don't want you guys to have in the edit because I just don't, it doesn't vibe with me and my character. Now, I can argue that with his consent of a digital replica, they probably could get him to say whatever they wanted and still be reasonably according to close enough to the script. And part of the reason why I really like this amendment is it says that this is specifically according to the script that was previously provided. I actually love this.
Yeah, I get that.
Digital replicas, they also said, they put in digital replicas are not allowed to be used during a strike to finish a project, which makes a lot of sense, and it was only a matter of time that gets in there. Actually, let's talk about synthetic. So synthetic, not synthetic performers, synthetic. I do feel like the more that we've been talking about AI, the more that we see what is the fight here and what is at stake.
Yeah.
We are not, after 3 years, we are not terribly impressed by Tilly Norwood. We have not seen any synthetic act on a substantial level. Okay. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, these rules only apply to the studios. The SAG-AFTRA, and this needs to be reiterated to everyone. And as much as I wanted to ban all synthetics and so on and so forth, SAG-AFTRA has no jurisdiction over telling a startup AI company what they can and cannot create. This is literally a agreement with the studios, the AMPTP, which is a conglomerate or a board that negotiates on behalf of the studios. So this is a pretty narrow thing. Granted, this is on the information session, so it's led by Duncan Crabtree Ireland and Sean Astin. When they talked about synthetic, it is, we need conversations with the studio if they're going to be using a synthetic. Mm-hmm. And also, the new addition is they need to discuss and argue the fact that this synthetic is adding significant additional value, in their words, that a human performer cannot. Okay?
Okay.
So just let that sink in, because on the page, it looks like gibberish, but this is a huge talking point. And when I heard it in the information meeting, it actually made me feel better, to be honest.
Okay.
They need to argue the fact that this is why we need to use a synthetic, and this is how much we're willing to pay for it. So I had an interesting conversation with an actor on Threads about this, talking about the significant value added language in the contract. So why would they care about a rule that gives them the leeway to define it however they want to? Which is fair. I'm as paranoid as anyone else, and I would love some more transparency from our union and from these studios about all these conversations they are having with these studios. In this case, I don't know exactly what that looks like. Let's imagine Avatar. You're creating a synthetic humanoid monster, and you're ready to roll out this huge movie that takes, and you're not going to tell SAG or anyone, and you just release the movie, and you just say, whoops, sorry, we did this thing. You got to deal with it. Besides the complete breaking of trust, I don't see that happening. And we are going to be talking with more AI experts soon. But I don't see that happening. And I feel like that's far-fetched. Maybe I'm gullible or naive. I think the other flip side is more realistically, it might be a studio takes 4 years to make Avatar. With generative AI, maybe it's quicker, maybe it's 1 year, maybe 2 years. It still takes time, even with generative AI. You got programmers, prompters, whatever you call them, engineers. Somehow you need a synthetic to look human and then act on top of it. When we saw that Tilly Norwood can't do squat, according to this contract, you would tell the union about your plans. And if you're not going to tell them, I mean, you know, secrets are going to come out. First of all, you have to do marketing for the movie anyway. So the secret's going to come out anyway. And then you explain why this synthetic that you created adds so much more value and is better than Andy Serkis. That is such a high bar. I just don't see how that happens. In 4 years, sure. We know that advancements are going to happen in 4 years. In 3 years, according to the union, the studio has not announced any use or need to use a synthetic at all. And now this is kind of the bargaining. The bargaining is, this is the payment, this is how much we're willing to pay. You have to penalize them for saying, hey, we really need a synthetic for this role. They need to argue and show why that this synthetic is adding significant value. Now, I think that's a pretty high bar. So I'm not terribly worried. The last note that I wrote. Meanwhile, production is sputtering and escaping overseas, and not any clarity on the streaming bonus after 3 years from anyone. Needless to say, I'm a little biased. So those are my thoughts about that. And we're looking for more conversations. Hit us up on actorsguidepodcast@gmail.com and on social media.
I don't know. I don't think that's a high bar, because I think it's too. I don't think it's as high as you think it is, because I think it's open to interpretation, and I think if they're clever, they can use language that suggests it adds value. I mean, what's value? You know what I mean? Value is a very subjective term. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's as high a bar, because I think it's vague. And I think anything that's vague is open to interpretation.
Maybe I'm in the minority and maybe I'm optimistic. And also it's like, because we've been keeping track of AI for so much during the course of the past year and a half, you're not alone. Eric Pasoja, I actually know Eric Pasoja through just the union world. He's on the board of the union's LA New Technology Committee, which is obviously important now, considering all these advancements. He's very, very skeptical. He's been very critical of how the union's been approaching all of this stuff. He was in Variety just recently, had a quote. He says, "Who determines that? A studio lawyer. That's who determines significant additional value." Yep. He has always felt that the language is too flexible, far from reassuring. He says, and if a studio licenses your performance to a third party, they have to give written notice and meet to discuss it. No consent, no compensation floor. The union gets a meeting, the performer gets nothing. Yeah, there's a wide range. And Eric Pasoja definitely is on this further end of more protections.
Absolutely. But that's the job of the union. Do you think that, again, like these things are a bit of a distraction from the wider issues? And not that they're not important. I do think they are very important, and I think these protections are important. But they become the talking points. You know, I talked to someone about that this week, and like a lot of this stuff, because it's so new and buzzy, and it is, you know, it is potentially very destructive to the industry or disruptive at the very least. Does it take too much focus, like a disproportionate amount of focus from the other things which allow people to stay in this industry? Namely, health insurance, you know, residual from streaming. Like the talk gets instantly pulled to AI because it's a topic that, you know, that demands attention.
Yeah, I think that might be part of the challenge. The part of the challenge is we're looking at this huge 18-page summary. By the way, we're going to put the link in the description. And if anyone wants some fun reading over the weekend, the full agreement is going to get churned out by the union, and all the I's and crossing the T's. That is going to be released to the members. And this summary is a lot. It touches on a lot of things. And it brings up a lot of questions as far as what is the membership of our union right now, who's really going to vote, and who's an active member. And a lot of people are lit up about AI, and it has taken up a lot of bandwidth and a lot of the negotiations. And what about everything else? So you bring up a good point, and I have always leaned more to the side of where's our money, streaming residuals, where's the compensation for our work on TV and film, and that's kind of like almost a footnote in this contract.
What's the biggest for you personally? What is the one issue, if you had to pick one, just one? What's the biggest issue that speaks to you? What's the most important thing to you?
Oh, and I think last week was a good tease. It was always about streaming residuals. It was always about streaming residuals. It was always about this streaming bonus. We might as well talk a little bit about that right now. There's not really much to talk about. So there's a couple big things in this contract. Nothing about the streaming residuals. The minimums got raised 3% every year, which is, great. The streaming bonus, and this is kind of like, if you want to hear me rant about the streaming bonus and how we broke down, the streaming bonus was basically something that was enacted in 2023. And instead of actual significant revenue sharing or participation in the profits of Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV, they created the streaming bonus. And I think the increase was, hey, raise the streaming bonus to 35% or to raise it a certain percentage. And I'm like, the issue is the streaming bonus exists. That's the problem. You're not a math expert. I was an econ major, so I don't want to brag. What's 35% of zero? It's still zero. Now, obviously,
money well spent.
I'm exaggerating a teeny bit, but when we talk about these increases to something that is minuscule, it falls on deaf ears. And that's kind of the issue with us having this structure of the streaming bonus and No, back to your point, no substantial conversations on streaming residuals. So let's get to there's a huge issue with the pension. The pension merger. This is something that, needless to say, only older people and more veteran actors are going to have. They're fuming about this. This is a big deal. They are merging the SAG and AFTRA pension plans. So when in 2017, actually in 2012, the two unions merged. Okay, now I was completely oblivious to actor union stuff at this point. SAG is primarily was film and TV. AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, represented live, broadcast, and recording artists. Okay? We take it for granted that we merged that thing, but that was a huge war. That was a huge, huge issue of some people were joining AFTRA, paying dues, and then hoping to somehow get into SAG separately and vice versa. They were completely separate worlds. And so that merger really was a huge sticking point for a lot of people. And then in 2017, I believe, they merged the health plans, and that was considered a bailout. After it was small potatoes and it wasn't financially really stable, and it was considered a SAG bailout that you merge the health plans. So in a way, if you make money in one plan, you could get health insurance, and it would basically combine forces and combine that pool of talent and combine that pool of money. So you're only leveraging for that one huge body. But what happened is a lot of people who are, playing, Monday morning quarterback or hindsight is 2020, always hated that issue because they felt that it diluted our body of union members. So it just expanded. Before we were talking about, background and stunt performers and, puppeteers and all that. Now you go a step further and every radio artist and voiceover gets added in. And here we are. So now this is the final piece of the puzzle. A lot of people hated the fact that we merged. And now it's the pension plan. Forget about healthcare. Now this is another conversation about the haves and the have-nots. The people in the SAG pension plan feel like this money is being used to bail out the AFTRA pension plan, which is completely separate credits, completely separate money. You combine the money and perhaps more people could get on the pension, meaning you combine AFTRA credits, you combine SAG credits. So those people will succeed and it might help them out. That being said, the people who are heavily on the SAG side, already getting that money, feel like that money is being diverted. So, I can understand that a lot of people, I barely understand the pension because I was like, I'm not ready to look at that yet. That being said, that is a big, big reason why people got into the union in the first place, is because every paycheck that you make, they contribute to your health plan, they contribute to the pension plan, and the goal is you work a certain amount of years in your career and you get a pension to retire to. We have to reckon with how well is all of our health plan and pension plans being managed, and if it's being managed so well, why are we needing to bail it out? Board member Joanna Cassidy voted no. It takes a lot to actually speak out publicly. It is bailing out AFTRA's retirement fund using SAG participants' money. You talk to the new generation of anybody who's like, I'm just trying to get a job, let alone think about retiring. I feel like you and I are both in the this kind of middle ground as far as, hey, we are looking towards the future. We've also been doing this for a while, and also we are looking at this as a career and trying to find something that is financially stable as a actor and performer.
Right. Well, it's sort of, this is now the time when we should be kind of thinking about pensions, especially you, I will say.
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up because we have breaking news. I did not look into this at all until recently. I called up the union and I asked them where I am in my pension, how many credits I have, how's it all work? And sure enough, I actually qualify for a pension. Boom. You have no idea. If there was any question if I was ready for retirement, hell yes, I am. Are you kidding me? I might want to work harder. I don't know. Anything can happen. This actually affects me. I had no idea that I qualified for a pension. I am involved in this conversation. I will have money coming to me at age 65. This was lost in all my other mail that I don't open. But for those that are interested, I'll give you the nuts and bolts of qualifying for a pension and what that entails. And hey, maybe you're part of this conversation. AFTRA and SAG, the pension plans are going to merge. Maybe this affects you. Anyway, so the threshold. And for those that don't know pension means that at 65, you will get money. You will get money every month. This is like, real adults doing real adult things and, all their corporate jobs when they retire at a certain age and then they get money, like all those, other people with normal jobs. It's a thing. Acting can be like a real normal career. I know it's crazy and we're involved in this. So the threshold to qualify for a pension or get a pension credit for SAG, I don't know AFTRA, but for SAG is $20,000 of SAG work in 1 year. $20,000 of SAG work in 1 year or 70 days in 1 calendar year. Now, 70 days, that's kind of crazy. But those are the thresholds. You get enough credits. If you get over 5 credits, you have to get the credits and then you have to vest. To vest, you need 10 total or 5 years in a row. So to give you an idea, right now, I believe the pension is around, it's $400 to $500 a month. Hey, I'm not going to poo-poo my nose at money you're just going to give me every month. But that's essentially what it looks like. So that's the nuts and bolts. Check the SAG pension plan. Give them a call and see if you qualify. But here you go. Dude, this took a turn. I'm ready to retire. I mean, if you've been listening, you should not be surprised. I am so ready to retire. Now that I'm in this pension plan, who knows? This might affect how I vote.
I think health insurance is up there too, though. I think health insurance is a huge issue for a lot of people, and myself included. That's a really important part of this too. And I think the streaming residuals plays into that a bit.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But particularly for people with families, that's massive. Like if you can't get health insurance through the union because you're not making your minimums, whether that's through work or residuals or whatever, how do you stay in it? You know what I mean? Because health insurance in this country is so expensive. If you were to just get it on the marketplace as a private citizen and not through any job, that's the bar for a lot of people. That's the bar to entry. I mean, that's what people care about in this country. And it's weird coming from a country where our health system is not perfect by any means in Ireland, but you can get treatment. I mean, they're not, there is treatment available. It's not going to bankrupt you. If you need to go to the hospital, you can go to the hospital. That in this country is that is a huge bar to entry for a lot of people. And I think that's a part of the streaming residuals are a part of the conversation, because let's be honest, most of the stuff that we go out for these days is streaming, So I think you're right. And I just, sometimes I worry that AI has become the conversation, and whether or not somebody changes a line is important, because, existentially that's a huge part of the integrity of this profession. However, I'm not worrying about that if I can't get health insurance and I can't make a living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's further down the line. I mean, it's the kind of thing, it's a funny profession because you get into it, usually at a younger age, and I think, I'll speak for myself. You spend a lot of time just going, how do I get, my foot in the door, and what's the next thing, and how do I level up? And then, you've been doing it a few years, and then this thing starts to come into sharper focus. You're like, oh, am I going to be, how am I going to be okay at the end of all this? You know what I mean? And like, I'm not a great planner, I will say. Like, I'm not wonderful at planning things, which works out wonderfully well in certain situations. But I do think that having a sort of an overarching idea of where you're going can be helpful for people. So it's funny at this age now to start to think about that and go, oh, do I need to plan this a bit better, or do I need to, like, because I'm sort of a, for lack of a better term, seat of the pants kind of guy. You know what I mean? I'm enjoying what I do.
Wait. See the pants where?
Seat of the pants. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that phrase. Flying by the seat of your pants.
Flying by the seat of your pants. Which, now that I think about it, I don't understand that phrase at all. We get a few more Patreon subscribers and we can have a production team who can Google that for us.
This is literally adulting. This is adulting in real time. Rian is realizing that it's dawning on him
that I am mortal, which was previously unknown to me.
This is a career. This is an actual legitimate career. And I think that's, all jokes aside, I think that's the realization that, we get into this because we enjoyed it. We thought it was fun. But to think that acting could be a real career.
It is.
Pay for your health insurance, provide health insurance for your family, and actually give you a pension to retire to. Back to my point, how does you get thousands and thousands of members to vote and feel the same about an issue when you have the younger generation who's basically growing up on TikTok? Are we providing something for the next generation of performers? And that's what our union is attempting to do, is to provide this structure and protection for the next generation performers. It's not easy and it's not pretty. And I think that it's incredibly frustrating at times, but here we are in the middle of it. And the only thing that you can do is really keep fighting. I was talking to my friend, I want to get to the little bit about the streaming bonus. It's like, I wasn't the only one that was praying that the streaming bonus would be banished. It's $40 million that was promised. It's definitely not that. And I will say this, I saw someone, a recognizable actor that I really respect.
Gregory Peck.
I saw someone at the wages and working conditions meetings. He gave his talk. Everyone gets 2 minutes. Lit it up. Literally lit the board up. Now, it wasn't meant to be antagonistic, but he was incredibly passionate. Saying about the streaming bonus, how it didn't work, and how we need real significant contributions. I heard him speak. I literally started crying. It was the most beautiful thing. And I was literally sitting behind him. And it was the most, I'll never forget it and those are the conversations that no one's going to hear unless you went to the W&Ws. You could look at this as when you're looking at the contract and you're thinking, hey, there's so many things that did not get passed, that did not get won. And we can be disappointed. But a lot of the union leaders say, hey, unfortunately, we couldn't get that, but keep showing up to the meetings, working wages, WW meetings, and keep saying your concerns, and we might be able to get that next time. This is an ongoing battle. It's an ongoing fight. About the streaming bonus, I was telling my friend, he was like, I still can't believe that we can't get actual participation. YouTube and all these videos have such extreme and advanced analytics. Netflix and Apple TV can't do anything. It won't give a penny. And I basically said, well, we hopefully one day before we die or retire, we actually might see the end of the streaming bonus. So let's talk about this health plan. That's a little more practical, right? 12 to 16% of actors in the union get health insurance. Now, I do want to amend this. The reason why you brought it up and the reason why it's on our radar, I didn't realize in this contract, buried, is the fact that the minimum threshold for a performer, the performer to get health insurance, it needs to make a certain amount of money through SAG work. You have to make money through SAG work. That's commercials. That's anything under a SAG contract, whether it's commercials, voiceover, etc., TV and film. The threshold got raised.
Yeah.
Now, it got raised even worse than I thought. They said in this contract it got raised an extra 1% every year. Now, I didn't realize that's actually a 1% increase of the 2% it was already doing every year. So what's happening in this contract is every year the threshold was raising 2%, and now it is at 3%. So as much, and I actually put out a video about the SAG health plan, and I was actually a little off, as thought it's a big deal. It's actually a bigger deal than we even thought. Our health plan is in such trouble, okay, that they announced that they were going to raise an increased threshold every year in 2019. This was announced before the pandemic. And we're not going to dive into the weeds, but we're probably going to dive into the weeds at this point because my mind was blown about how much there is beside to this story. I thought it was raised the thresholds, and I thought that might happen sometimes, and it might not. They actually announced in 2019 and 2020 that they were going to increase the thresholds a certain amount every year, and I believe it's 2%. So this was ongoing. In 2023, they didn't increase the threshold, so I was thrown off a little bit. I didn't realize that this was happening because our health plan was in such trouble. And now part of this negotiation is it's increasing another 1%. And my point in my video, and I'll put the link in the description, is this is just the tip of the iceberg.
By thresholds, you mean the minimum amount of money you have to earn in a year to qualify for health insurance before you pay the premiums and everything else. You just have to hit a threshold in order to qualify.
Exactly.
For a
And
health
this is roughly $27,000 at this point. And then on top of it, they're going to increase the premiums. So even if you haven't health insurance, they're going to increase the cost of that health insurance. And back to your point, in some world, we should have universal health care just as a point. But this is just, narrow focused on what's happening in our industry for SAG-AFTRA members. And
it's funny because the health plan is always something that I had heard even like long before I joined the union of how good it was. Like it had a good...
Oh, you heard that? Yeah. I always heard
from
that
lots of people. I always heard SAG health insurance was great. So it did have a good reputation, and I've been a part of other unions in the past as well, and not every union has a good health plan, and they change over time. But the SAG-AFTRA, the SAG at the time health plan was widely regarded as a really good, a good thing to have. So I don't know. I wasn't aware of the data breach or the 15 million they were sued for. I didn't know about any of that, so I guess I'm not that educated on the ins and outs of the health plan itself.
Just so you know, the board approved it 89% in favor. Okay. Now, I think that's a pretty average number. I would say go get informed before you put your vote in. It's still another 2-3 weeks. I'm going to do the same. I was already minimizing my expectations. I'm not completely scorched earth.
I didn't feel scorched.
I mean, that might be the win, is that I didn't even go scorched earth.
You know what? I wish you had, just to see it, because we've heard a lot.
I might go scorched earth on this health plan. I might dig into the troubles of the health plan in the past 7 years. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because first off, 18-page agreement. It is very dense, and the info meanings help make it make sense. Mm-hmm. So I really suggest that. But also, it's like a lot of this is, I don't know who's really talking about the specifics. And I'm looking for a place, and I'm looking for more places where we can talk about what are the real issues for our members and what really affects us day to day. So let's do hidden gems.
Let me get my hidden gem. So I went to a garden centre in Santa Monica called Mary Hughes on Ocean Park, and I was just looking around, and they have incense cones, which I'd never seen before. And I love incense. But so I picked this one. It's called Zion. They have a series of, a line of incense cones based on national parks in America. Wow. And I picked Zion. because I went through Zion. We stopped off when I moved from Chicago to LA. I did the drive with my dad, and we stopped off a load of places and like spent time there. So we spent a couple of nights in Utah, and we went to Zion National Park. So I was like, oh, cool, Zion. And my God, it is my favorite new thing. They're $25 for these incense cones. You can get them online. The company is Good and Well Supply Co., I think. But they smell incredible. And I'd never used incense cones, but they're unbelievable. And it's this one is made of desert, lavender, sage, dried herbs, and sunshine. So it's made of sunshine. So it's $25 for a little bit of sunshine. It's not too bad.
And sorry, just for our video watchers, can you show us what a cone looks like?
Yes.
No,
absolutely.
can you open it up? Like, what is it? Like a little pine cone?
It's like a little cone like that. And you burn it from the top. You put it on something ceramic. And you burn it from the top.
Oh, you literally burn it.
And it's kind of smoky because it's like a cone. It smells incredible. So,
wow. Well, that's kind of a double hidden gem. So it's sold at Mary Hughes Sunset Gardens.
Yeah. And you can also get them online. You can buy them directly from their website. They have a big range of them. I just bought the Zion one because of the connection to Zion.
Yeah.
But I will go back and smell some more.
That's cool. Nice. There you go. I mean, that's also on that note, I have a very a very naturey hidden gem as well. I went to the Sherman Oaks Farmers Market for the first time. It's right down the street. There's so many great farmers markets that I want to dig into in LA, but this farmers market, I've been living in this area. I didn't even know that it existed. So it's down the street from me. It's every Tuesday, 2 to 6 p.m. Good quality little vendors. And you take a nice little stroll. It's right next to the Fashion Square mall over in Sherman Oaks. So the coolest thing is, because I learned they had this small little vendor for composting. Now, I didn't really know what composting was. I know that it was for like super environmentally conscious people, but they basically had a booth where you can drop off composting. Composting is, and they showed me the rules. It's basically like apple
like food
cores.
waste and
yeah, exactly. Food waste, but they don't take the chicken bones. They don't take meat stuff, but food waste, dead plants, etc. All these things, instead of throwing it in the garbage, hey, you compost it. You can drop it off to them, and they actually will let you take home some compost. And if you have plants, people like me, you take that compost, put it in your plants, and it just supercharges their growth. So
amazing.
I'm doing it for my first week, and I'm going to go there this Tuesday.
A little renewable composting.
Exactly.
I like
exactly.
That. Yeah.
That's it. Those are our environmentally conscious hidden gems for you. Hope you had a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. See you next week, guys.